welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I'm, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 173rd episode, our returning guest is Jonathan Fowler. This is Jonathan's 51st appearance on the podcast. For a complete list of his previous appearances, check the show notes. Jonathan graduated with a BA in History from Indiana University in 2006. He is an unabashed left-wing political junkie. He has lived and worked in South Korea for over 10 years, trying to help the citizens of that great nation, hopefully, talk pretty one day. And now, on to the show.
I'm having my evening IPAs.
Plural.
Yeah. Yeah, we just recorded last night, but I just think we, ought to comment on what happened this morning, this morning Korea time, I guess America time at night, but with the death of Michael Brooks of the Majority Report and the Michael Brooks Show there.
Now, he was the weekend person on the Majority Report, that's right?
I mean, he was a, co-host almost constantly and stuff, and, I don't know, lately he may have been taking a little bit more time off just because he was doing his own show and stuff, but I don't know. I didn't really follow the day-to-day, but what I do know is that the guy was a show mainstay on the Majority Report for, as long as I've been watching it, I think, which is like probably since about 2015 to 2014-ish, around that time at least, I guess, which is not too long after he came on the show, I guess. And I'm just like, like the Young Turks and stuff, the Majority Report has been pretty much just a daily thing, if like I'm, hanging out at home at night, listening to some news or whatever, I'm listening to them. If I'm getting ready in the morning, getting my shower, I've got something on I'm listening to, quite often it's them. I'm just saying, like, the guy's been a pretty much daily, news source, commentary source of entertainment for many, many years for me. So, it's personal and shit that this guy died. We don't know how he died. I saw something about a heart embolism or something potentially, but that's, unconfirmed at this point and stuff. But yeah, it's like a friend died. It's literally like that. It's what it feels like and stuff. And, and we don't have, as direct a connection to the guy as, people who, his family or people who work with him or whatever and stuff. But it's just like, I think if you just take a look at Twitter, you're going to see there's a lot of people out there feeling pretty similarly to how we feel right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mentioned to you, this is like 2 years ago or so, that I had a listener tell me that they started listening to the show because he had been recommending it to people. So
yeah, no, I checked it. It was I went back in our messages to find out when that was, because I remembered that. And that was May of 2019, so it was a little over a year ago. Gotcha.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know if he shouted it out on the show or said something on social media or what, but apparently he was a listener and he directed other people to the show as well, which I definitely appreciate.
That was a huge moment for me because, like, Bob, this is your show, and you do all the the diagnostics on who's listening and where they're listening from and how long they're listening and, whatever all that stuff is. I have no idea who our audience is. I have extremely little concept. I'm shouting into the void here. I don't know who I'm talking to. But when you mentioned that Michael Brooks from the Majority Report had apparently recommended us somebody, I'm like, holy shit, he knows who we are. He knows what we're saying. He's heard our show at least once, and he, felt worthy of recommending it. Like, that like, in my mind, that put us on a level. I'm not saying we're on the level of, like, these premier, we do a good job, but journalistically, I think we, you do your utmost to keep it journalistic and everything, but just to even be on their radar at any level is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And
so I would say for the past year, at least, just like, when I have to think about who is my audience, it's not really my family. I don't know. Maybe it's some of my friends. Maybe it's you and me. Maybe it's like the type of people like us back in college who might have been listening to something like this. But for the last year, it's definitely been that there's always been the thought in the back of my mind, Michael Brooks could be hearing this.
Oh yeah.
That's been a persistent thing, and there was always the thought, if we got big enough or something, if we got on the map somehow, like if we were to do a collaboration show with them, or we were able to, get together and pick their brains, and now that's never going to happen.
I know, right?
And I would encourage you to reach out to that listener who was forward to the show and stuff. I think it was a Canadian woman. I looked back at it and stuff.
Yeah.
And just ask her, like, how did you hear about us? How did he recommend it? I mean, do you know him personally, or did he just shout it out on the show, or what was the nature of this? Because we're never going to hear it from him.
Sure.
My thought always was, and maybe it's a little self-aggrandizing, if we got big enough, maybe someday we'd be in a position where we could ask him, like, how did you hear about us? Why did you recommend us? Like, like what episodes were, catching your attention? What kind of stuff were you listening to there?
Right.
Like, there's just so many questions, as DMX once said, some questions go unanswered. That's what I'm afraid of. Right.
Right. But it was definitely a cool experience to know that somebody on that level was paying attention to what we were doing. So that definitely gave me a boost. So
yeah. I mean, like I said, the guy's been a daily part of my media consumption for 5 or 6 years. I mean, the sadness of knowing that I'm never going to hear another one of his jokes, another one of his great impressions. The guy does great impressions. And frankly, one thing I've been kind of disappointed in the past, like 6 months or so, is he's really backed away from the impressions a lot. And he's gotten a lot more kind of like, deep mind on some stuff in some ways and stuff. And he and we probably would not agree on everything. I think, like, economically and geopolitically, I think there's some stuff we would just not, and I think that's partially a function of me living outside of America for so long and just like seeing how, things are out here to some degree, and what else is out there and stuff like that. And I don't know. Like, I mean, like, but I miss, what I'm saying is, like, I miss some of the impressions a lot. He didn't do them a lot. I don't know if Sam Cedar kind of wanted to cut down on those or not, but
what impressions did he do on the show?
Oh God, what did he do? He did like right wing Mandela. He would do like Nelson Mandela in the voice of a right winger, as though like he was on the right winger side. He would do
Sam, I am troubled by a lack of seriousness in the GOP field that I see.
Really?
All of these candidates are true patriots who clearly would like to save America from the destructive liberal socialist tendencies of President Obama. However, I see a lack of seriousness when it comes to foreign policy and family values that is lacking in the field.
Really? What is it that you feel is lacking specifically?
I think, as I say, a measure of seriousness when it came to foreign policy and a willingness to confront the Islamic threat. See, many people don't recognize, Sam, that there is evil in the world.
No, I think people, I think that's probably
And I think
true.
If you look at my
You don't think that the Republican
experience set and skills that I bring to the table, as I
So wait a
continue...
second. Are you suggesting that
I know
right-wing Nelson Mandela are going to run for the Republican primary nomination?
I know that liberal hosts like to interrupt and be disrespectful, and I will be painted into a corner. Comments I made about Buju Banton being correct about gay people will be distorted. All sorts of things will come my way. But I have received a message from God saying that I must run.
So God
So it is today that I am announcing later that I will formally create an exploratory committee to see if a run could be what this country needs to save it from creeping socialism.
Wow.
An open border and terrorists at our front door who do no longer believe in American strength.
It is breaking news. Right-wing Nelson Mandela has announced that later today he will announce that he's going to announce an exploratory committee.
An exploratory, that is correct. God has told me to fill out the waters.
How do you feel about Rick Santorum running for president? I mean, he's the guy who brought you into
All
the
right,
spotlight.
let's take a break.
Right,
Let me go. Let me
Mandela?
pick up a phone call here. Hold on. We'll get back to Nelson Mandela. We already did
This is
the
too much
breaking
fun.
news.
With regard to my dear friend Rick Santorum, whom I like and respect, I will say this, that my private income, and I have been very blessed in that regard by God, my own work ethic as a job creator and private citizen, I never made money as a lobbyist. And Rick Santorum, who frankly has a very undistinguished record in the Senate, spent years lobbying, and I don't know what his positions were in the 80s. Frankly, I was fighting against the feminist agenda in South Africa. I was fighting to maintain traditional marriage against everyone from gays to Zulus. I don't know what Rick Santorum was doing. When I was on Robben Island,
What is this just
Saying-
for the Foster Freeze primary? I mean, why are you going after Rick Santorum? It's like I understand he coined right-wing Mandela,
there
but I
was
mean,
no
even still,
coining.
it's like I don't know, shooting at the elephant and aiming for the tail.
well, first of all, let me say this. I respect Foster Freeze tremendously as a job creator.
That's funny.
I don't know. He would do Muslim Brotherhood Obama or something like.
Hello?
Rise and shine, little devil. This is Barack Obama.
How did you get this line, Mr. President?
Never mind, little bitch. You got mail. Mark Zuckerberg, the little swine that created Facebook.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
How are you? You bring community together. You're helping white people sex to each other in a different platform today.
Yes.
Look, Mark, you know as well as I do that I tend to try to leave the devil's business to his own. If you all want to kill each other over Facebook, that's fine. It's my job to teach the black man his true nature and keep him off of that platform and get him onto World Star, baby, World Star. But look, you and I both know that white people are very gullible and stupid. So I was very troubled to find that you had said, with regards to fake news, which is why we have, of course, the true devil that you're afraid of. I don't care about. Trump can be president for all you white people for all day, for all I care. But I know you're scared about it. You want a Hillary. But yet you said just the other day in the paper that the idea that fake news was part of the election, fake news on Facebook, was crazy. What the fuck do you mean by that, Mark? I go over there and slap you upside the head?
In retrospect, we are trying to manage this issue. That wasn't the best way for me to put it, but we're trying to simultaneously give people a voice and also make people heard.
Yeah, give people a voice. Yeah, that's great, Mark. Look, Mark, let me explain something to you. If a black man who has been historically disenfranchised believes that the AIDS was created by the CIA, what do you call that, Mark?
I have not come
The
across that.
truth, because it was created by the motherfucking CIA and the white man. Now, white devils, what do they do all day during election season? They send around memes with fake quotes by popes about sex at pizza parlors and some true ones about my Islamic faith. But you got my point, Mark. Do you think white people are gullible?
I think this is a huge problem on a global scale that I think can be addressed.
Hey, look, Mark, you have a responsibility to your people, and I do mean your people, to not spread these news stories. White people can't handle it. Their brains are filled with mayonnaise and putty and American cheese. I'm going to tell them that Hillary's a lesbian with Huma Abedin. They're all going to believe it. Maybe that one's true, but you take my point.
Like, we are being proactive on this, and we hope to reconcile.
Deep down, you know, by letting you run a little private NSA data mining operation, that you're winning a whole entire war on the white devil better than the prophet Elijah Muhammad ever did. So at the very least, you could keep them from believing fake meme quotes and fake Morgan Freeman quotes. The fuck is the matter with you, Mark? Only in the white devil society could a little freak like that get this far.
And as if like he'd do a great Obama impression where like this right-wing fantasy that Obama was just this this guy who was trying to impose Sharia law inside America and how he hated the white devils and everything. Like, I mean, he had this whole the shtick of these two characters, and he had other ones too and stuff. So he had good Trump impressions. He had good Dave Rubin impressions. I mean, he was all over the place.
When you said you were thinking about people's policies and records, and I was picturing you doing like very diligent research and thinking about it, and then this dumb voice went off in my head, and I was just like, I'm just really interested in your ideas.
Well, I mean, I'm really hoping that he's looked into Bolsonaro and made a decision about whether or not he supports him. I mean, that video was pretty incredible. I love that you tweeted it.
Isn't that fucking unreal? And then what I liked is that in that video, we played it last week on the show, so most people know what I'm talking about. But basically, but please watch. Anna did an incredible video, just demolishing Dave Rubin, and also, by the way, doing a great explanation of the Lula case and everything that's been happening in Brazil. Please go watch that. But he appeared on a pro-Bolsonaro propaganda YouTube channel, and then he got a question about it from his audience, and it was specifically with regards to clear-cutting the Amazon. And he was like, and I knew, and it was funny because I figured like, oh, he'll get a question like that, and he'll be like, I don't know, I need to read more. But he did like, SJWs in the schools, blah, blah, blah. But he did use the like, I don't know enough about clear cutting in the Amazon. And I saw today though that he was bitching on Twitter about like, I don't know, Family Guy isn't going to do gay jokes anymore. Some shit that like, honestly, I wouldn't even know one way or another if I wasn't looking to make fun of Dave Rubin. And I saw that tweet and I was like, oh, I guess like his Amazon clear cutting reading time obviously got interrupted by the fucking breaking news that Seth MacFarlane's like cartoon that is apparently still running on television isn't going to do like 2005 gay jokes anymore. Like, way to keep your eye on the ball, buddy.
That's funny.
So I strongly recommend going into the back catalog because he had some great stuff. He had a really good Bill Clinton impression.
I can see Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton loses his shit during these things. I'm surprised he hasn't been out. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you another thing. Bernie Sanders killed Vince Foster, and we covered it up at the time because we were trying to be allies of socialists in America. I said, Hillary, why do you think Bernie killed Vince Foster and dragged his body to the park? And she said, well, because Vince wanted people to have choice about their health care, so Bernie killed him. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think Bill's been kind of quiet for the past 8 months or so. Remember when he wrote that thing in, it was at Washington Post and New York Times? That's just like keep the economy going, guys. Like just the most generic.
Oh, yeah. It's like the midterms are. No, yeah, he wrote that thing that looked like it sounded like it was written in 1990. Like it was literally like 1995. Like it was like AOL is entirely changing how we communicate. Yeah, we are entering a information superhighway.
And by the way, I'm not in hiding because of what's going on with Ghislaine and Jeffrey.
Yeah. Look forward to my next mystery novel, which I'm co-writing called If I Did It. Jeffrey Epstein Plain Edition. It's a takeoff on the OJ concept, except it's If I Did It, Jeffrey Epstein Plain Edition. So in other words, if I was on the plane,
if I boarded it,
and I knew that it was a giant predator child trafficking ring, what would I have done?
If I, who used to be the man who could command most of the intelligence organizations that you'd ever need to, determine a question like that.
If I ran an intelligence apparatus that regularly targeted powerful people by exploiting their most grotesque sexual appetites imaginable as blackmail and was close friends with two of the most prodigious human traffickers in human history, and I went on that plane and knew what was going on, what would have happened? That's why it's called If I Did It, Jeffrey Epstein Plain Edition by Bill Clinton. It's like the OJ. Y'all remember when OJ wrote that book? You like Bill Clinton when he gets real like pedantic in a fun way. It's just like, y'all remember when everybody was all mad because OJ wrote that book, If I Did It? And everybody said Judith Reed should have published it. Well, I thought he should have, because we need a full accounting of what happened, which is why I'm working on a book. And of course, I'm not saying I did, but if I did, what did I know about what was happening on Jeffrey Epstein? If I did it, Jeffrey Epstein Plain Edition. All right.
So, I mean, he was, the impressions, like the humor. I mean, the guy was just funny, a lot of the time. He was really funny. I mean, And he was born in 1983. He was our age exactly. Basically.
Oh wow. Okay.
He was a total contemporary.
Uh-huh.
And what I saw on Twitter was that David Pakman had actually, apparently Michael Brooks I think he'd been born in New York or something, but then he'd moved out to Massachusetts, and he knew David Pakman back around 2012 or something.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually David Pakman who had introduced him to Sam Cedar and got the whole thing
wow.
started. So there's that connection. And last night we talked about David Pakman, and we may have mentioned the Young Turks. We didn't mention the Majority Report that I know of, but it's never far from my mind when we're talking about these people.
Definitely. Well, I knew of Sam Cedar first because I know he was on Air America. I think he had a show with Mark Maron at the time. So that was the way I knew of him, and I knew, of course, of Michael Brooks through that. So
yeah.
But
back in the Bush years, there was a lot of stuff going on that we were not necessarily privy to. There was, Ezra Klein was out there blogging. Cenk Uygur was out there somewhere starting the Young Turks. Janine Garofalo and Sam Cedar were, hosting whatever iteration of the Majority Report that they were doing at that time. And there was the beginnings of the seedlings, or if you will, of what we have of the left-wing mediascape, alternative mediascape out there. Was already being laid back in 2004, 2005, 2006. And we were left wing. We were politically active. We were engaged, all this stuff. And we didn't really know about this stuff. I started, becoming aware of it back around 2011, 2012, 2013, got hyper involved around 2014, 2015. And until today. And then, I think it was in 2014, you and I were sitting out on your porch talking about the idea of probably, something that would eventually permutate into the Rob Burgess Show here. I don't know if you remember that conversation, but.
Oh, I do. Absolutely. Yeah. That definitely put the seed in my head for sure. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't tell you if I was thinking about any one show of these in particular. I don't know what I was thinking about back then, but it was I had this idea of just, people like us who talk about these things, talking about them before a wider audience. I saw the news in between in the middle of my 7:30 class, and then I was just I was distraught in the 10 minutes before my 8:30 class. And in my 8:30 class, I was just sleepwalking through the class basically because I was in shock.
Right.
And I don't know. I've been a wreck all day.
Right. Well, go ahead. I was going to say it is kind of, if there is any silver lining or whatever, it's there are the archives of what you do in spaces like this out there, whereas with radio and stuff, that just kind of went into the ether, and then no one, whoever heard it, and that was it. But I feel like at least, with the digital media escape we have now, it is sort of a time capsule. So we can go and, explore the archives and that, so...
I think the problem with that, though, Bob, is frankly, these kinds of shows are topical. It's day to day.
Right. No doubt.
I don't know what the online publication, the Daily Beast, I don't know what that means. I think it's a literary reference to something. I don't know what it means.
I heard that explained. It was from a novel or something. It's it was a fake newspaper from a novel. I forget what it was. Yeah.
Well, to me, in my mind, before I had heard it explained and then forgotten it all, it means, the daily news grappling with the events of the day. That's the Daily Beast. And the Daily Beast keeps moving, right? I'm, the metaphorical Daily Beast, not the actual publication. Yeah. So they got Hillary Clinton on their board, or Chelsea Clinton rather. So, but my point is, nobody's going to go back and listen to 5 years of 3+ hour long podcasts about what was going on at the time in the day. Unless they're a historian who's focused on this kind of thing. The people who saw Michael Brooks while he was alive, those are the people who saw him. And people who didn't, they're not going to know him. And that's a sad story. But I do think that for the next 20 years, there's going to be people like us people like the Young Turks, people like David Pakman, people like, you know, I don't know, just all of them who are this guy's going to be a touchstone for left-wing thought. And I think that may be the legacy. So, you know, it's a bit soon to try to, you know, extrapolate what his legacy might be, but I think that might be part of it. So.
Yeah. Well, I saw where his family was going to form some foundation, so it'll be interesting to see what form that takes. So. Yeah.
I mean, like, Bob, what kind of media do you consume on a day-to-day basis? Because I'm just, you know, because like I watch the Young Turks, I watch the David Pakman show, I watch the Majority Report, and there's a couple others like Secular Talk, you know, the Humanist Report. There's a couple of others that I fuck with a little bit too, but it's like those three are kind of like the main rotation for me, with a little bit of MSNBC mixed in.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's probably because I work in news that my sources are a little more mainstream. And then I, after the fact, kind of come to what you're talking about, that kind of independent media stuff. But I think if I was not a media worker, you know what I mean? Like, I probably would just consume it through that lens. But since I have to present it myself as, you know, objectively as I can, initially, I do have to kind of intake it, you know, kind of from the mainstream New York Times, Washington Post, AP, you know, that kind of stuff. And then after the fact, you know, I usually come to the same place, I feel like, that the independent people do, but I don't consume it usually first that way. Like, if I wasn't somebody who was a journalist, I probably would just, like, watch Bill Maher and, you know, do the Young Turks and Secular Talk and Majority Report and all that stuff. You know what I mean? But,
I mean, I like me some Bill Maher too, but frankly, the Majority Report is not his biggest fan. They haven't been for a couple of years.
No, I know.
It's a complicated world, but
he's on HBO, so it's not exactly independent. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But yeah, I know. But I mean, those shows and stuff are for people that want to know what's going on, but they don't want to have to sift through everything. They just want to hear it from the people that they like to hear it from, you know, and I totally understand that. But
well, I think you could say the same thing about a lot of mainstream stuff too, though. You know, they want to hear it from the people they want to hear it from, and they don't want to really examine the biases of some of those people. And, you know, I mean, there's stuff, like, frankly, there's stuff in the left-wing media sphere that, you know, I take with a grain of salt when they get on certain topics or what have you, or they go off on certain tangents or rants or something like that. I take it with a grain of salt because, you know, I have some different knowledge about some of that stuff or whatever.
Right.
But I still think, you know, I don't know, to get I think the thing is, you can't report on an administration like the Trump administration straight. That does a disservice to everybody's understanding. The man is a massive idiot, and you have to go into every interaction with any media involving him understanding that, and dealing with people who won't pretend otherwise, right? People whose job it is not to pretend otherwise. So I think, you know, to some degree, that's the value of it.
Yeah, I would. The only counter I would say to that is that sometimes if I get too deep into that, then when I encounter somebody who only watches Fox News or gets their, you know, information from the right-wing version of what you're talking about, I usually have no idea what they're talking about at all. And I still don't usually, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like I just feel like so disconnected from what they're
Bob,
about.
I feel that when I'm consuming a straight MSNBC diet, I feel the same thing. But I think on the left wing, quite often, I mean, on these media sources, they cover like whatever the latest worries and fears of the right wing are, and so I think you do get you get a window from them into what's going on, and especially on, you know, the Majority Report, there's a lot of kind of like sarcastic understanding of where these people are coming from or something. I think you get a little bit of that and stuff. So,
right.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I think you can consume this media, and as long as you maintain, you know, your critical capacities, you can still function without. I don't know how to say it. I think you can still consume it somewhat objectively, and, you know, realize what's an opinion and what's a fact.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. So
Yeah. Anyways, I think this is a seismic event in the media sphere, and like I didn't really think about it. I mean, like before, Michael Brooks was an important person, sure, but I never thought about I never really thought about losing someone like him. He's our age. He's young. He's not, not the age to go.
He wasn't sick as far as I knew. Like,
no, I think it sounds like something rather abrupt, whatever it was. So
right.
It's a scary world out there. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but everybody's talking about it today. The Chapo Trap House, the Majority Report, obviously, the Young Turks. I haven't seen some people. I'm gonna have to wait until tomorrow's episodes get dropped, I'm sure, to hear their take on it. But it's massive. But like I was saying, this is a guy who, I hadn't considered him leaving us like this in a way, and I hadn't considered what the ramifications of that would be. And today having to confront that, I'm starting to. It's reinforcing like how important this dude. He wasn't just a guy that I sometimes agreed with and sometimes didn't or whatever. Like, he was a voice in a movement that had reach that we're only now beginning to understand. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of blathering at this point, but.
Well, no, I mean, it was like you were saying before. You have no idea when you're doing a show like this who's listening. I mean, I can see like the stats or whatever, but I don't hear back from every single person who listens all the time. And some people will tell me they've been listening for a long time, who've never said anything before, and it'll just kind of come out of the blue,
Yeah.
And
our YouTube mentions, Bob, are anemic. I'm sorry to say. It's like,
YouTube
if
is not.
You're on Twitter to try to figure out who's
format.
listening. Once a year you might get a sliver or something, but it's kind of like, I don't know.
Well, YouTube's not really my format, because I mean I do just post the audio with a picture on it, so it's not very dynamic to watch or whatever, but it is just another place for it to exist. So I'd say audio is more the forte or whatever. But I've had Joy Reid from MSNBC retweet some of my episodes, and there's other people. Most of the centered around Sarah Kendzior, of course, but you know what I mean? Like, it's found its way into some unlikely places. I've had Martina Navratilova, the tennis star. I know she's listened before, so.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's, just, let me know when some of these things happen, because I'm in the dark. I have no idea who's listening and stuff, but yeah, definitely. But I just feel like we had to comment. We just recorded last night, and then, less than 12 hours later, this shit happens. And this is massive. It's absolutely massive, and it's fucking depressing. And it really, like I said, it changes to the degree that I, think that we could achieve some things with this show, as far as, getting into the club, getting to meet some of these people who are up there at the top level doing this stuff. That dream has been lessened a little bit today.
Right.
The people that I thought we could meet, the things that I thought we could talk about, the conversations I wanted to have, the questions I wanted to ask this guy if we ever made it or something, that's all off the table at this point.
Right.
And that's fucking depressing.
Well, I guess we got to grow the show bigger before anything else happens.
Yeah. I don't know. Bob, have you ever looked into like licensing music or something?
I mean, it would take, honestly, you can probably do it, just if you don't want your videos to be monetized on YouTube. Yeah. A lot of times they'll let you do that, which I'm not making any money off it anyway, so maybe it wouldn't hurt, but
yeah. What about the podcast aspect? I mean, would you get takedown notices on the podcast if you drop some audio in there?
I've actually never on the audio side of it. I've never gotten anything. It's usually YouTube, and it's usually because I think YouTube has some sort of AI that matches.
Yeah, they're looking for that
songs.
Shit.
Like they've got something turned on where it's like the second I post it, there's a copyright claim. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's somebody listening to it and doing that necessarily. And I've won every copyright dispute I've ever had. Well, except for a couple, and I just took them out of the episode. But for the most part, if you just dispute it, and like, I've started getting ones on my theme song, and I have written permission from the artist, so
Yeah, that's insane.
That's insane. But
The
so I'm
fucking
sure
monster's
I'm
out
sure
of
it's
control.
not him. I'm sure it's just the AI, whatever that says song detected or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, ridiculous.
mhm.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I don't know, man. I'm just saying, like, I think, like, having some variety in music, having some theme songs or something. If I had to put a song for this episode, I would put Offspring's "Gone Away" here on this one. I've just kind of been blasting that on repeat this afternoon. It was, very depressing and stuff, but I don't know, as far as, reaching that higher level, I think that would be one step, but there's one podcast I hate listen to, which is Angry Americans.
You told me
we
about
talked
this.
about that, didn't we?
Yeah, what are you angry about? I believe you said was his catchphrase.
Yeah, he's always like, yeah, if you're not angry, then you're not paying attention. I'm Paul Reichoff or whatever. Fuck off. But this dude is overproduced out the wazoo. Like I don't know how he gets all these songs in there because I don't think he's getting permission for all of them, but maybe he is because he seems to be an extremely connected person. But like he'll drop any. I mean, and his drops are just so like obvious and stuff. It's like, today we're talking about, America, and then like America, it's like a song cuts in that says America or some shit. It's dumb. But it's like, somewhere in between Angry Americans and what we are now, I think that's maybe where we should be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
I'm just saying, I think we could get away with a little bit more, maybe not on YouTube, but.
No, yeah, well, just the audio part, I had, my friend Sean did a thing where he remixed some songs, and I got a bunch of YouTube takedown notices, and so I posted the episode without the songs, but then I had the audio version of the same thing, and it never got taken down at all, so I think maybe that is something we could do, like maybe one version for YouTube, one version for the audio version.
I hate to make more work for you, Bob, but I do think,
Yeah. Well, speaking of growing the podcast, what do you think about like doing some kind of like special episode that people would have to like get behind a paywall or Patreon or something? Do you think that's something that's possible?
I'm like
how do you support? You talk about independent media a lot, so like how do you support the independent media that you like? Like what is your favorite way to do
Big
that?
Daddy Chacha doesn't own a credit card, so
okay, see, there we go.
Yeah. and this is something that I think that Michael Brooks and I would have disagreed on, is like, I mean, I don't think I'm as far like on the socialist side as he is and stuff, and I'm not like this, a avowed socialist or whatever. But I mean, even that motherfucker, like they had, I think they had, they had a whole. I would have to look into that. David Pakman definitely does. The Young Turks definitely do have a paywall for certain content.
Right.
I'm not sure the Daily Report does, so don't quote me on that. But and I'm not sure about TMBS also, the Michael Brooks Show. I'm not sure if some of that was behind a paywall or whatever. But like everybody out there trying to make money in the system, and that doesn't make you a hypocrite because that's the system we live in or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, Bob, whether it's putting ads in, whether it's endorsing certain products yourself, person to person, whether it's putting stuff behind a paywall, I don't think that you're going to be out of step with what everybody else in the world is doing. I don't think you're going to be judged especially harshly for anything that you do. Okay.
Right.
So you got my blessing to do whatever the fuck you need to do to, make this thing as legit and as mainstream as it can be.
Because I was talking with my buddy Mark, who also listens to David Pakman, and he was kind of brainstorming with me ways of he made it work for him, and he was talking about
David Pakman drives me up the fucking wall with his endorsements, because you click on like a 3-minute video and you get 45 seconds of commentary, and then the next hour, a minute and 15 seconds is this ad.
So you think maybe he does too much?
Have you guys heard of Blinkist? Have you ever wanted to like read a book in 15 minutes or less? Right. And have it summarized for you because you're just a busy guy on the go like me who doesn't have time to read books but wants to be an intellectual? It's like, I love and respect David Pakman, but that shit gets really annoying. And to be honest, like, I would watch his content more often if I wasn't having to click away from the video halfway through all the time.
Right.
So maybe that's not the one to do.
Okay.
But yeah.
So you're saying too many ads can be distracting, but you don't think it's like a disservice? Because that was always my worry with bifurcating the audience. It's like, I'm not going to have that. If I were to have like a Patreon or whatever, I would probably only have a handful of people to start with, and it's like, I'm making a podcast for like 5 people right now or whatever. And it's like, and plus I want my stuff to be heard, as much as possible, and I wouldn't want to like have some barrier to it. I like the fact that anyone can listen to any episode right now. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I agree with it too. I don't think that's the industry standard.
No, I know.
So,
yeah.
So for whatever that's worth, I don't think you'd have as much problem as like with David Pakman, because the thing is, he takes his show and he clips it down into like 50 different clips per day or something. Like, well, not 50, but
do you
7
like
or 8.
that, or do you not like that?
I do like having like I'm getting ready for work. I'm going to put on one 8-minute clip, and then I'm going to put on another 7 or 10-minute clip, and then I'm going to go out the door. But if half of that is ads that I'm going to have to, in the shower, I'm wiping shampoo out of my eyes while I'm trying to find the skip or go to the next or go back button and shit. I'm not about that. So,
right.
But that's because he cuts his stuff down into these small episodes, and then he puts ads in every single section of it. That's why it's so annoying. In a 2 or 3 hour thing, if you drop in like an ad here or an ad there, I don't think anybody's going to be like looking at you sideways here.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I just hate breaking up the conversation like that, either putting ads in or breaking it into little things, because I like it to be kind of free flowing. And there's things that we mentioned earlier in a conversation that we then reference later that would be useful to know. You know what I mean? Going forward. So I've been squeamish about that too, but I suppose that's something I could get over if that was a good way to go. So, but I'm just trying to look at what these guys are doing and trying to see what parts of it I could use for my own purposes or whatever. So,
Bob, it's like it's like that old movie. If you build it, they will come. And you've built something. How many episodes you got now? 180.
Oh, close. 170. This will be 173. So
yeah, like I mean, you're building it. You're getting mentions from pretty high up people in the media environment. I don't know why there's a reason why you couldn't take it to that level, right?
Right. Well, I think most of it is based on the problem that I see is that most of when I get traction, it's because I get somebody on like that people know, and they would just watch or listen to whatever that person does. And I think there is some residue of people that stick around, obviously, because I see it on the SoundCloud stats. Like there are people that always come back for the same content and then have started to listen to our episodes. Not that anyone knows who we are necessarily at first, but once they've listened to that more popular one, that maybe you hit the subscribe button and then you get whatever's coming next. So I guess my problem is I don't feel like anyone's coming to my show for me. I feel like people are coming more for whoever I happen to have on. I think that's most of when I do get those kind of high up mentions and listens. That's usually based on the guest, frankly. Yeah. So.
Well, I think,
but I always try to get good guests, so I always do try to like aim high in that respect and try to get good people. But I don't know who is sticking around for the next episode.
Yeah. Well, I think to some degree, Bob. I mean, you're approaching this again as a very journalistic thing, and there's things that you don't want to do, there's things that you don't want to say, and I think sometimes you'd rather have it come out of a guest's mouth, and so.
Bingo.
Yeah, and so I think like. To some degree, I think that detracts from your authorial voice or something, or whatever. But I understand that there's a balance that I don't fully understand that you're trying to maintain there, and so I respect it and stuff. But
I do try to get good people on that. I'm not going to have somebody on and just let them rant uncritically who I don't agree with. Obviously I had Martin Shkreli on, and that was one of the most popular episodes, not because I agree with him or anything he does, but because I knew that I could have a good conversation and ask him probing questions. So
yeah. I mean, when I try to think about all the famous people that you've had on here, it's I can't even think of them all. You ought to like compile a list somewhere so I can post it prominently. Yeah, I think that could be part of the social media effort or something. Say like, come listen to guests such as Martin Shkreli, former presidential candidate. Or wait, he wasn't on. You interviewed him separately from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could probably interview him again. I mean, I know his, well, at least I knew his presidential campaign manager. I don't know if he's still associated with him.
Yeah, he's probably working for Biden now.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe he's stumping for Trump. So.
I think that's probably true. I don't really put as much of my own opinion into it as I could. Ash has also given me that note before too. So.
Yeah, I think, but I think obviously what you're doing is working because you're getting listens from people and people are respecting it and taking it seriously to some degree. So
yeah,
I don't think I could start a show like this, Bob, myself under my namesake, and it would probably last about 5 episodes. So you're doing something right. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not easy, and it's definitely had better periods and worse periods where I've had more and less episodes. I'm definitely entering a more busier period where I've gotten a lot of things come to fruition kind of all at once. So I'll probably have in this 2-week period with these 2 episodes, I'll have had 5 episodes in 2 weeks, which is a lot for me. So, but yeah, I mean, keeping it more regular and just trying to get better and better guests, and I don't know. So there's a lot of
Bob, my thing is, I think with a good deal of effort, I think you could turn this into a full-time thing.
I would like that,
honestly. I think it could be done. I think the answer, I don't know how to do it, but I think it's sitting right there, which is just do what everybody else does. Product placement, a paywall at some point, some ads. I hate to be that guy, Someday they're going to look back at Big Daddy Cha-Cha as the Yoko Ono of the Rob Burgess Show, but
right.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, you're banging this thing out in your spare time, which I don't know how you even have any, but I'm just saying it could be easier if this was your main thing.
Oh yeah, well definitely. But I mean, ads is another thing that I'm kind of allergic to as a journalist, just because it's, there's always that separation, or there's supposed to be, between the advertising and editorial side, and I feel like it's kind of supposed to be that way for a good reason, and I feel like people question your motives if you I don't know, report on something that you've advertised, or you are saying something you don't believe just for an ad. You know what I mean? So.
I think there's 2 ways around that, Bob. And I think one way is to embrace it and find products that you actually enjoy and actually use authentically, that you want to endorse, and you endorse those. And I think the other way is to just endorse anything, even if you clearly, even in the ad copy, don't give a shit about it. And people know, he's paying the bills right now. That's what he's got to do. I understand.
Right. No, I think I've mentioned this before, but T.I. has a podcast where I think that like a good 85% of the things that he does ad reads for, I don't think he has any familiarity with the products, and he makes that very clear in the ad reads. But like, I feel like he's reached a level of fame where that's acceptable, and people don't, the advertisers don't care. They just like the fact that he has this platform and they're on it, and they don't really, he's like advertising male enhancement pills and making it very clear that he has no need for them or whatever.
Yeah, you got to.
He's like, I've never tried it myself, but people tell me it's great.
It's like the opposite of like not only am I the president, but I'm also a user or something of the product.
I liked it so much I had to buy the company, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, Bob. Maybe we can get into those big dick toilets that were such the rage from those Republicans a couple of years ago.
Yeah, who was that? Was that the acting?
That was one of the Trump guys.
Yeah,
somebody in the cabinet or whatever.
I think
transition
it was the guy
team or something.
Like, I think it was the attorney general we had briefly between Jeff Sessions and Mike Pompeo. Yeah. Let's see if they need a sponsor.
Yeah. If you're like us.
Yeah. I mean, like
after a 3-hour session in the studio, I got to take a whiz like a horse, and I mean like a horse. I don't know, like a racehorse or whatever. There's a way. There's a way to do it.
Oh, sure.
I think another method, Bob, is to make a short-term show, like a 8-episode miniseries on something, but then keep it alive after that, and just pump out like coming soon to, the Wondery podcast is a new thing. And, you just pimp out like, short, like episode promos for new shows indefinitely. Cause like, I've definitely got some old shows that I listened to a long time ago, miniseries that, something will pop up in my feed and I'm like, what's this? And I'm like, oh, okay. They're getting the money to shill for some new show that's coming out. I think that's another method. So
yeah, or maybe if I did a limited run series that was more focused on a single topic, and then I don't know, that maybe would be, that's kind of the Wondery model. They have the Tiger King one, they have the Jeffrey Epstein one. They're all short run, 6-episode, short kind of hit in and out. But that doesn't really mean but they're a network, I guess is the difference. I'm not really a network. I'm just one show
Bob,
now, I guess.
You're thinking too small again, Bob. Why isn't the Rob Burgess Network a network yet?
Because this is hard enough to put out one a podcast.
Yeah. Well, like Ariana Grande said, break up with your girlfriend because I'm bored, right?
Oh yeah, right.
Make this your main time job. Then you can see what you can do.
Yeah.
Anyways, I guess, hey, we've gotten a little bit off topic here. This is about Michael Brooks and what happened today, which is a fucking tragedy.
Right.
But, and it led us into a very serious conversation, obviously, about, the future plans of the show and so forth, the direction and so forth.
Well, but it only inspired that because he was kind of doing exactly
he was out there. I mean, like he got on the Majority Report. And then, after several years of grinding there and doing his thing and stuff, he was branching out. He was going to do some other stuff for himself then. And he was, he had collaborations going with like Jacobin Magazine. He had stuff going with Anna Kasparian at the Young Turks. I mean, he had, all kinds of connections, all kinds of stuff going on. And I don't know. Yeah. And the thing is, I think like, I mean, with the Majority Report, like there's him, there's Sam, there's Jamie, there's a couple of other people there and stuff. And like, I don't know, sometimes like, I think like, I don't know what the future of the Majority Report even is right now, because I think like, Sam and him were kind of yin and yang in some degree. Like, Sam was really tepid on some stuff. And and Michael was all in on it. And then sometimes Michael, I think, frankly, like his passions got the better of him. And I think the more measured approach of Sam Cedar was more proper in some cases. And so, but anyways, that constant, that tension between those two approaches was a big thing in that show. And I don't know how or if they can at all even attempt to replicate that with anybody else. It's a fool's errand, really. So.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a natural kind of chemistry there for sure, and it would be kind of disingenuous just to something, kind of wedge something in there haphazardly because there's a void. But yeah, you're right. I don't know. It kind of messes with the chemistry of the show, like how the dynamics played off each other. So, but
yeah.
And I guess that's a problem for people that have multiple people on the show. I mean, you and I have conversations, but I'm the one constant on the show for every episode. So, and I usually don't have more than unless you count that one episode that you and me and Ash were doing it at the same time, I usually don't have more than one guest at a time. So
yeah, we'll have to do another one of those if if COVID ever ends and I ever make it back to America again. We'll have to record a couple like that.
Yeah, right now it's like, is Trump keeping everyone else out, or are we trapped in here with him?
No, you guys are stuck.
Yeah,
like
if
I come back right now, I can't come back and do my job.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. But anyways, Bob, I better let you get going and stuff. But I just I couldn't not talk about that.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely.
3 or 4 months, 5 months later, if we hadn't done an episode between now and then, that would have been something that we would have still had to address.
Right. Well, Yeah, well, I'll drop in. Do you have any favorite? You mentioned a couple impressions, but do you have any favorite bits of his that I could drop in here at the end?
There was one about one of my. I actually, little known fact. At one point I actually attempted to call into the show.
Okay.
Okay. And this is a little story, and I kick myself for not successfully accomplishing it. But like the thing was, so I was watching the show live at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning over here or something or whenever it was, and one of my favorite all time clips of theirs is about this Republican congressional ad or something for I forget if it was Matt Gaetz or it was the guy. It was a Republican down south somewhere who had been like a Marine or a Navy SEAL or something, and now he's running for Congress. And he eventually got in trouble for like having BDSM sex with somebody else's wife or something, and like
I think that was the governor of Missouri. You might be thinking of.
Yeah. Well, if you can find the clip where they had done a thing about his ad, because he like goes out and he like fires this minigun into this lake.
All right, speaking of bringing people together, ladies and gentlemen, you all remember, what was that guy's name? Captain what from Pennsylvania? The guy who would yell libtards and then fire his machine gun into the side of a hill. And he was subsequently fired by his township when they realized, like, oh my God, our chief of police is a lunatic. Well, why settle for a chief of police who's a lunatic when you can get a governor who's a lunatic? This ad is for Republican nominee for Missouri governor, Eric Greitens. I think he's former special ops? I'm not sure. The other guy was Chief Mark Kessler. Now, Mark Kessler, he would just go in and take the police firearms and semi-automatics and fire it into the side.
Got some work to do, guys.
This guy, governor, this Missouri governor candidate, Eric Greitens, he actually somehow got a hold of some type of, I don't know if it's a Gatling gun or what it is, but it looks like, and he seems to be firing it into a pond. And that's his whole commercial. You hear someone
ISIS
else
habitat.
talking about, but he's just firing it in. I don't know. Maybe he's like tearing up some ducks. We can't really see because maybe he missed and they didn't want to show that part. But here is this ad. It is, Missouri.
Eric Greitens is under attack from Obama's Democrat machine. They're trying to steal another Missouri election. But Eric Greitens is a conservative warrior, and when he fights back, he brings out the big guns. Eric Greitens, a governor who will set his sights on politics as usual, reduce spending, create jobs, protect life, defend the Second Amendment, and fight Obama's Democrat machine in their corrupt attacks. Good news for us, bad news for them.
I'm Eric Greitens. Join our mission. Let's take back Missouri.
That was bizarre.
It's kind of existential, actually. I just like he's just staring into the abyss, just firing aimless. Like it was very like Americana French. There was a certain
I feel like,
meditation on meaninglessness and action there.
I feel like part of it was trying to communicate he's a very steady hand on the trigger because there's no kickback on that gun as far as he's registering it, and there's no vibrations. He's just holding it, standing still, and his shirt is just sort of blowing in the wind of the rounds that are being fired.
I'm a school shooter for the Constitution, man.
I did notice though that he had to wear protective goggles, which I thought was a little weird.
Cuck.
It's just amosexual porn.
That's right.
The people I worked with at another gun violence site. Who did not like guns and were very much against guns and all of it, got addicted to watching YouTube videos of people shooting guns and all different and people making contraptions with drones and very dangerous stuff. They would spend hours and hours and hours.
This was pretty vanilla as far as that amosexual porn goes.
Well, right. I mean, it's just enough for many buddies to turn their head and say, hey, who's that guy? I'm going to vote for him. I hear a lot of shooting.
Another type of sexual, that sounds like.
Bang, bang.
No, that's the amosexual thing that they hear the shooting and then they're like,
Hi, this
"Oh,
is Peter
right."
Thiel. I'd like to max out.
Okay.
And they just have a hilarious, like, Michael Brooks has a hilarious thing. He's like, there's something, he gets very deep and philosophical and kind of like existential about what's going on in this ad. And it's a brilliant piece. And the thing was, at the time when I tried to call in, because that had always been my favorite clip of theirs up to that point, just as a contiguous piece of media. And this guy he'd gotten in trouble, and I had not seen them comment on his troubles on the show. And so I was going to call in and just say, hey, this was one of my favorite ads or favorite parts that you guys did. And have you guys been following the case of this guy's, whatever's going on with his scandal now? So I tried to call in, but it's hard to call into these shows. Okay. Let me just say that, because like, like, I'm on the phone. Somebody picks up the phone and says, hello. And I'm like, hello. But at the same time, I can hear the people in the background talking, and I'm pausing my iPad so I don't like have the show still going, but I'm still hearing them talking in the background, and I'm not sure who I'm talking to. And at some point they were talking to a previous caller than me or something, and they had said something like, some libertarian or something that said, get off the line or turn off the thing or something. I don't remember what the situation was, but I thought they were talking to me or something, because I thought I'd done something wrong. So I hung up. Like, they were just like, who are you calling? Where are you calling from and stuff? And I'm about to say, it's Big Daddy Cha-Cha from South Korea or something. But, I hear this thing in the background. And I was able to, like, when I watched the episode later, I was able to see the part where they were actually talking to the previous caller or something. But I was getting that feedback through my phone, and I wasn't sure who I was talking to. And I could hear them in the background. So I wasn't sure if I was on the air. And stage fright to some degree took hold and shit. But it's fucking sad, because that would have been, that was my chance to talk to the two of those guys. Mm-hmm. And I'm never going to have the chance to talk to Michael Brooks going forward. And
right.
So, but yeah, that's the clip that is one of my all-time favorites of theirs. Although there's a lot of great clips, a lot of very, very funny things. I think there's another clip where, what's his name? The former TYT guy who decided that he's a classical liberal now. Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin had said something like, my mind is still like trying to recover from the being stuffed full of all these big ideas or something. And Michael Brooks just can't hold it together and keeps like repeating this audio drop or something of Dave Rubin saying this and stuff. And it's a great thing, because there's just a lot of subtext there.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways,
they made fun of him a lot on that show, didn't they?
As he rightly deserves. And I think and also another great thing is because I think he and Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks had a really good connection. And I think part of it was just a shared disdain for Dave Rubin, because, Anna Kasparian has talked about, she had this guy over to her house. She had consoled and comforted this guy. They talked business. They talked personal. They'd done all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then he just leaves the show and goes off the fucking deep end, Right. And so like the two of them, I think, listening to this thing of Dave Rubin saying this was also a very funny moment, because they both can't keep it together.
Right. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I'll try to send you some clips as I find them and stuff of
send me a clip. I'd like to kind of do something drop in on this episode for a couple of them. So
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Bob. I know you're busy there and stuff, but yeah, I think it's a worthwhile addition to the episode. The episode was not going out today. We both know that. So you can
I'm working on it. It won't be 4 months this time.
In there somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a sad day though.
For sure.
Truly.
Well, R.I.P. Michael Brooks for sure. So
indeed. Yeah. Rest in power, as everybody's been saying.
Absolutely.
Poor bastard.
I know.
I think, that guy. I think that guy had more effect on everything than he will ever know, and than most people realized until now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure. All right. Well, have a good night, Chad.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Bob.
All right. Bye. Later on. Join the Rob Burgess Show mailing list. Go to tinyletter.com/The Rob Burgess Show and type in your email address. Then respond to the automatic message. Also, please make sure to comment, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available, including iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Twitter, Internet Archive, TuneIn, RSS, and now Spotify. The official website for the podcast is www.therobburgessshow.com. You can find out more about me by visiting my website, www.thisburgess.com. If you have something to say, record a voice memo on your smartphone and send it to therobburgessshow@gmail.com. Include voice memo in the subject line of the email. Also, if you want to call or text the show for any reason, the number is 317-674-3547. Until next time.